Scarecrows may not be able to move, but they can definitely give you nightmares. And this movie is here to prove it. It all begins with tense music as the darkness of night reveals a deserted camp, broken locks, childhood photos, and streams of blood. As soon as they end, we see that Maya and Robert are fixing the patio when she asks him about the scarecrow that lingers in the darkness. Apparently, it was brought in by their friend Margot, for it's a mascot of an event that occurred 2 years ago. But then Robert says something that makes Maya really upset. The farm was the site of many murders and no one knows who did it. Maya is angry because she wasn't told about this before she started working there. Robert is only making things worse by saying he doesn't know who the killer is and that the killer might still be on the loose. They've only met the owners of the farm, sisters Tina and Mary, once, and one of the murder victims was Tina's own daughter. Robert tries to calm Maya down by saying that all this happened a long time ago, but she's still afraid. To make matters worse, they find out that there's no cell signal in the area. The tension between Robert and Maya continues to build as they have a long, emotional conversation. But eventually, they make up and find some comfort in each other. As soon as Robert steps away to turn on the lights, disaster strikes. He's suddenly grabbed by a mysterious man dressed in leather. Maya calls out to him, but there's no response. Fearing for Robert's safety, she bravely sets out to find him, but what she discovers will haunt her for the rest of her life. As she approaches, she sees the gruesome silhouette of a blood-stained scarecrow, and she lets out a blood-curdling scream. She tries to run, but in the chaos she stumbles upon Robert's lifeless body. Just as she thinks things can't get any worse, the Scarecrow Man emerges, brandishing his cane like a weapon. Without hesitation, he beats Maya to her death. Cutting to the next morning, Mary is in her camper van in the middle of the woods. Meanwhile, 3 women, Harriet, Lily, and Cindy, arrive at the field and reveal that they haven't heard from Maya and Robert since last night. Furthermore, another scarecrow is bound to the wall, and Harriet asks the 2 people who put it there, Simon and Margot, to remove it before her mother sees it. She's quite insistent on her removal of the scarecrow, compelling the other 2 to promptly take it down. Referring to the murders that happened here 2 years ago, Harriet says that scarecrows are just a bad omen. In the camper van, Mary consoles Tina, who stares lovingly at a photograph of her dead daughter and husband. It is revealed that she tried 2 priests and 3 psychics to check if their place has been rid of its evil, and there was no evil felt by them after the inspection. Since Robert and Maya are still missing, Tina wonders if they've found out about what happened at the fields and run off. Still, Tina is insistent that this place needs to be cleansed, and Mary huffs before she gives her 2 weeks. Afterwards, Margot and Simon put the scarecrow in another empty caravan instead of destroying it like Harriet told them to. Outside, Harriet assembles all the workers, including a new girl named Beth, and declares that they are going to reopen the camp and turn Amityville Farm into the best glamping location in the whole country. After receiving promising nods from the team, Harriet leaves. She enters the house only to flinch as Dylan, her boyfriend, sneaks up on her. She seems more jumpy than usual and could have almost killed Dylan with the knife she had. Dylan notices her fidgety nature and she opens up about how the opening of the camp is making her nervous. Dylan agrees, saying that it shouldn't have opened so soon after everything that happened. Harriet still hasn't recovered from that night, and it's fair. Dylan, ever the dutiful, listens to her concerns and calms her down. The scene changes and all other workers are sitting around a fire pit, warming up during the cold winds of the night. Margot stirs up the gossip about the events that occurred 2 years ago. The Amityville house claimed that the brothers shot down their entire family because they heard voices in their head. Then the locals burnt the house down because anyone that went in there apparently heard voices telling them to kill them all. Then the kids' summer camp opened. A man named Lester, who worked on the site, was the favorite of all the kids. Until one summer when all these kids went missing. One by one, they just turned up dead on the cornfields. Turns out Lester did it. He spent too long being exposed to the evil that radiates from the earth, and he heard voices in his head telling him he had to make a human sacrifice, and the kids' summer camp never opened again. Until about 2 years ago, a family came here. They wanted to reclaim and expand, but when the Amityville house burned down, the souls got trapped inside. They'd seek refuge in anyone or anything that was nearby. So this family that came here and they got murdered, they were terrorized, tortured, and cut open like pigs in line at a laughter house. But there were some survivors who killed the killer and swore to never tell the tale. According to the first movie, the survivors were Mary and Tina, who killed Lester, the killer who had returned to finish what he started. But earlier in this film, Tina said that they never found Lester's body, and right now, Margot gossips that he still stalks the site, waiting for fresh victims. The story leaves Simon reeling, but he's quickly pulled away by Beth. The other three finish a bottle of alcohol as the scene cuts to their tent. Tensions are high, and Beth accuses Simon of having eyes for another girl. A heated argument ensues. Beth storms off to take a shower, but she soon hears strange and unsettling noises. We see the shadow of the scarecrow lurking ominously in the background. Simon hears the commotion and goes to investigate. Inside the shower, Beth thinks Simon is playing a prank on her, but she's horribly mistaken. She opens the curtains, only to come face to face with the bloodthirsty scarecrow. He stabs her repeatedly, taking her life in a brutal and gruesome fashion. Simon meets the same fate, but not before suffering the additional horror of having one of his eyes ripped out. It is the next morning. Lily and Beth are decorating the yard when they discuss the disappearance of the other works and find some old newspapers in the old cars. They reflect the story Margot told last night and date back to 1981. Lily goes to confront Tina about the story, and Tina in turn assures her that they've taken every measure they could to ensure everyone's safety. Elsewhere, Harriet goes to wake up Simon and Beth, only to find their tent empty. Tina and Mary say that both of them have left, but they know something is not right. Tina thinks that they're the ones who are cursed and not the land. Later, Harriet tells Dylan about her family's history with this place. At the same time, Margot proposes to Lily and Beth that they should visit the shed that was burned down years ago, hyped by the fact that Tina told them not to. That night, they do just that, even though Lily has backed out. They find the shed unlocked, and their careless adventure begins. Meanwhile, Harriet tells Dylan that she's going to leave this place with him and asks his help to tell her mom Mary and Aunt Tina. As she convinces Tina, Lily arrives and tells the two about Margot and Cindy going to the shed. The three promptly leave for the shed. Tensions rise at the shed as the scarecrow takes a hold of Cindy and she struggles as he chokes her. Margot runs outside to get help and inform Tina that the scarecrow killed Cindy. Both Tina and Mary have the horrifying realization. They believed they had killed Lester, but he was back, and he has killed 5 of their workers already. Harriet has a terrifying realization of her own. She goes to Dylan's caravan, but he's not there and there's blood on the walls. This sends Harriet into hysterics and Tina has to calm her down. Tina demands that everyone but herself and Mary leave the place. The two sisters' life is tied to this place, but it's not the other 3 girls' battle. Mary and Tina will end this again, just like they did last time. An emotional Harriet, Margot, and Lily leave, but not before Tina promises that they'll find Dylan. The sisters cautiously enter the shed and are startled by a loud noise. They duck behind a box and see the scarecrow dragging an unconscious Dylan and tying him to a surface. He notices them, smashes Mary's head against the box and knocks her out. Tina cries out in rage and grabs a brick ready to strike. But just as she's about to attack, the scarecrow pounces on her, rendering her unconscious as well. Meanwhile, Margot, Harriet, and Lily sit in a car, and Harriet calls the police, reporting the murder of her friends. The officer thinks she's joking, but she convinces him to send someone to the scene. Harriet declares that she must go back to save her mother and aunt. The other two are scared. Lily wants to wait for the police, but Harriet doesn't want to leave her alone. Eventually, all 3 return. Harriet goes around the back of the shed alone while Lily and Margot go from the front. However, the scared Margot runs off, leaving Lily by herself. At the back of the shed, Harriet discovers Tina and Mary unconscious. She desperately tries to wake them up and senses something ominous behind her. At the same time, Margot takes refuge in a nearby caravan, only to come face to face with the scarecrow. He viciously murders her and tears out her heart, leaving it on the ground before departing. Lily attempts to escape in the car, but as she starts the engine, she realizes that her friend's lifeless body is in the back seat. Meanwhile, Lester takes advantage of her distraction and slashes her neck. Back at the shed, the 2 sisters regain consciousness and Lester searches for Harriet. Tina manages to break free from her bindings and frees Mary, but before she can finish, she hears Harriet's screams from outside. Without hesitation, Tina arms herself and rushes outside to find the scarecrow on top of Harriet. Tina swiftly stabs the scarecrow in the back, causing him to fall to the ground. But when Harriet removes his mask, the truth is revealed. It was Dylan all along. He confesses that he murdered all of her friends and defends his actions with a twisted monologue. The sisters confront Dylan for his betrayal and Harriet breaks down in tears. Just as Tina thinks it's all over, Dylan drops a bombshell by revealing that he is Lester's grandson. He could feel his grandfather the night the sisters burned him alive. He felt Lester's pain, his anguish, heard his screams and his hatred, and whatever lived in him came and it found Dylan. That's when they started. The voices. They were quiet at first, like a whisper, but day by day they grew louder and louder, and Dylan realized what he had to do. As the reality of Dylan's actions hit her, Harriet struggles to process what has happened. Tina, aware of Dylan's dangerous behavior, quickly guides Harriet inside to free Mary and escape. Tragically, Dylan catches up and stabs Tina. Mary retaliates by striking him with a bat and carrying the injured Tina outside. In a desperate attempt to stop Dylan, Harriet sets the shed on fire. As police sirens blare in the background, Dylan laughs maniacally as the shed burns. The women are left to watch helplessly. The scene then jumps ahead in time where Harriet is now pregnant. She has a conversation with her mother in which she expresses her desire to stay in Amityville and clear its name, and that they will be a proper family once Tina recovers. The film, however, couldn't have ended on a happy note. Harriet hears haunting whispers of "kill them" that leave her paralyzed with fear. Her eyes widen in terror as the whispers fade, ending the film with a haunting silence, and her face frozen in dread.